Well, so when I put that statement up there, what I was responding to really is social media. And I don't do much social media at all, but
Good.
yeah, and I don't recommend
A
most
great
people do.
wasteland. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But what I see people talking about, they say, I had this fantastic experience and here's the way, and then they talk about ayahuasca, or they talk about some three-step method, or this is a religious practice, or I don't think any of those things have anything to do with peace. Now, I think that
We're going to
somebody
stick a pin in that and come back to that 100
okay.
times here because I'm really, really fascinated by that statement. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Keep
that,
going, please.
there's 10,000 more gurus out there who say that I can show you something. I can take you somewhere, I can give you an experience, and maybe they can, but I don't think that that thing is going to lead to peace. I don't.
So what is it then? Do you think, and again, my background is I'm clergy in a mainline Christian denomination, and I am very, very well. I mean, I've been at this for 40 years, and a student of religion and a student of spirituality and faith. Not as much of a practitioner until I'm starting to soften a little bit, so that maybe that's something that's can come into this conversation a little bit later. But the thing that I'm always suspicious of is the people that I do encounter. It's kind of like what you're describing. Is people who've had that really fresh experience. It's just like mind blowing. I was that guy at one point, and I had a spiritual mentor one time describe it to me as saying, "Well, Steve." There was this guy who found Jesus when he was pushed down a well, and then he went around. The experience was so powerful. He went around pushing everybody else he saw, pushing everybody down the well. And I see a lot of well pushing these days.
Yeah.
How do where do you see it in the world that you live in?
All over. And I think this is the age of the instant guru. And
Okay.
I think for a lot of people it is real, but for a long time, at least in certain circles, there was this idea that you find your passion and then you make money off of it, so you never have to work a day in your life. I think a lot of people believe that, and they're looking for their thing, and it doesn't have anything really to do with work. Um, and that's how they think that we're supposed to live. And so, they have this profound experience, like you're saying, with the pushing down the well, and they think this is my calling. This is how I'm going to support myself. And some people are really, really good at it. Uh, I, I don't, whatever, do you? But I don't think that that's going to get anybody what they're looking for if the end goal is peace. I mean,
Because
self
we
help is
we
a billion
ultimately
dollar.
become, especially when we're trying to build a lifestyle, a business out of it or something, we're gonna reach a point where it doesn't work,
Yeah.
where there's some discouragement, where there's some maybe a disconnect. And in my limited experience, it seems like the deeper I go, the more I find out I have more questions than I have answers, and then I get real confused, and I'm not really that good for anybody. But maybe I'm better. I don't know. What do you think? What about that stage where we just start asking questions and start reaching the end of those answers that we have?
I think that's fantastic. I think that shows growth. And if you're not asking questions, and if everything is hunky dory, I don't know, I'm a little suspicious of that. Because I think that there's always mystery. It's baked into the fabric of reality. And if you're not hitting up against that mystery where you don't know something, then I think something's wrong. Maybe you've got it a little too cut and dried. I think there's things to which we don't have answers.
So when you're saying, when you are kind of putting it out there into the universe, that you feel like people misunderstand this thing, that's what you're talking about, right? It's seeking after the quick, the easy answer, the
Yes.
the 5-minute guru.
And there's something outside of yourself too. I mean, I think that's a big part of it, because the peace comes from within you. It is connected to something bigger, but if you're not at peace, you're not going to find it outside of you.
So where did you enter this? Where did you enter this realm? This place of wanting to know more and wanting to speak to people about it. How did it become a central passion for you?
I think it's always been there. Always been a curious person. I've always been drawn to the questions like you were talking about, especially the mysterious ones that nobody knows the answer to. And I'm a huge reader, so I read other people's opinions, the philosophers and all of this, and looking for that one continuous thread. What is the thread of truth in all of it? But it's also lived experience. So I've taken people on spiritual travel for the last 20 years and have had many, many experiences. And I'm also a trauma therapist. So I deal with the darkness in everybody's lives every single day. And what I have learned is that if you don't confront that darkness and believe that you are worthy of love and that you become the vessel of love yourself, nothing outside of you is going to give that to you. It could be right in your face and you can't receive it. So I think that the earthly work of trauma has to be done. I think maybe there could be some grace and some miracles, but for most of us, we're not going to get that. You need to do your trauma work.
Yeah, and so we're all talking about trauma these days. It's so much of a buzzword that we're, it's almost becoming caricatured, like a lot of things. But what do you mean when you're talking about trauma, and how does that really show up in the lives of the people that you work with? I mean, there's like big T trauma. There's fight soldiers on the battlefield trauma. There's other traumas too that a lot of people dismiss, maybe even dismiss when they're looking at themselves, and say, well, no, that really doesn't qualify as trauma. I mean, how do you encounter that in the work that you do?
Most of my clients do not have big T trauma. So they were not the people who were, the parents put cigarettes out on them and they're not sex trafficking victims. They didn't spend time in prison. I mean, not everybody, but most of them are people with first world problems who don't think that they have trauma. So I'm talking typically about the chronic PTSD stuff. So they had a mom and dad at home. They had food, they had shelter, they had clothes, they went to camp, but they came home to a house that nobody was there. Nobody was looking after them. Things happened to them. They did things because there was no supervision, there was no connection. And so they felt alone in life because trauma's not what happens to you. It's being alone with what happens to you or feeling alone with what happens to you. So it could be something as simple as I was bullied at school, and who wasn't? I mean, that's a very common experience. Right. But if you're alone in that and you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm this horrible person because these people don't like me, I don't have the right haircut, that could be traumatizing because it's a nervous system thing. It's not what happens, it's how my nervous system responds to it. So if
talk to me about that. Yeah, I'm really interested in that, the nervous system piece of it.
Yeah. So when the nervous system is put into a state of trauma, so let's say that I don't think most people think about bullying as a traumatizing event because it's so normal. But let's say that this happened to me. Okay. And, this person next to me has a family at home. They go home and they laugh off the thing and they just go on about their life. But here I am, I'm internalizing it. I'm alone. I don't have anybody to talk to. I feel like an outsider. And then that's going to impact my nervous system. My nervous system is now going to change. So now everything in my world is skewed negative. And I have this shame inside of me that wants to be hidden. I don't want anybody to know that I am the outcast because if they know that, they're going to treat me like that. And now I'm going to be abandoned. And maybe that's psychological rather than, actual. I'm not going to be kicked out of the house probably. But if I'm emotionally abandoned, that still has the same impact on my brain as being beaten. So, wow. There's things that people do like, I'm mad at you, so I'm just not going to talk to you anymore. If a parent does that to you, it's the same impact as being abandoned. So we're emotionally abandoned all the time. And when this happens as a child, it sets you up to have a different brain. And when your brain is like that, then you can only grow up feeling defensive. You're always on guard for, I have to be perfect. I have to fit in. And so I'm probably going to conform. And my world is going to be a whole lot smaller and my heart's a lot smaller. I can't receive the love that may even be there. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about trauma. I'm not talking about 9/11 victims. I'm not talking about, policemen who are out there on the front lines every day, although that's real too.
Of course. Of course, but your definition, your understanding generalized it to where really just about everybody,
It does. Yeah.
fits in that. I think it's part and parcel of human life. Do you think there's an age at which it's more damaging to our long term mental health, and brain wiring than at other
Yeah,
ages?
so it sets before the age of 7. And what I mean by that,
Mm,
the brain is plastic and we can always change the brain. But the attachment, so attachment paves the way for trauma. If I have a secure attachment, mom and dad's at home, I feel warm and safe and cared for, I feel seen, I fall down, somebody picks me up and they calm me down. I grew up in that type of environment. Something bad can happen. I could get hit by a car, I could get bullied, I don't know, um, anything can happen. And I go home and I feel safe again. And so whatever that thing is doesn't traumatize me. But if I don't get that nurturing before the age of 7 and something bad happens, now that's where the trauma comes in. Because, like I said, it's not what happens to us, it's being alone with that. And the attachment is what sets it up for trauma.
the attachment. Yeah. And that's really, really helpful.
Yeah, so like if I grew up in an alcoholic household, you know that there's an attachment issue there because addiction is not about, it might be biological and it might be a disease. I'm not going to address that aspect of
Sure.
it, but it is a coping mechanism to deal with the feeling of not being connected. So you know that that person has an attachment problem. So when somebody comes to me with an addiction, we're not talking, I never say, okay, you can't have any drinks. And, it's not about the drinking or whatever the addiction is. It's about how can we help you to feel more attached. So
Wow.
we need to
Okay.
deal with the issue that ruptured this attachment first. Then we have to make the person feel safe enough and vulnerable enough to be in that space with somebody to have intimacy. And once that's done, then whatever the addiction is goes away on its own because they don't need that coping skill anymore.
So, in other words, um, the harm, the tragedy, the bullying, the traumatic experience is made less potent in
Oh,
someone's
absolutely.
life when they experience attachment, a good,
Yeah.
solid attachment. But when they don't have that attachment, when they don't have a sense of love and safety, then that's when it becomes hardwired in our brains and gets spun out in a bunch of different ways. Yes.
Right. Yes.
Did I
And
get
our
that right?
society is set up so that the chance of you having secure attachment is pretty low. Most of us have two parents working, so there's nobody there. We
Yeah.
don't have maternity leave, so you have your mom for a really short time and then she's gone, and it's just not set up for healthy attachment at all. We're
Yeah.
alone.
I've got family members who, two of them are attorneys. One is was in a big law firm in a big city, and then another one worked for the government. And both of them had very generous maternal and
Mm,
paternal leave policies, and they took them for
mhm.
3 kids. They took the time, and I think about it as like, what a gift, what an incredible gift to be able to give your baby, uh, that kind of time and attention. It's so rare when that happens, though. Um, Tell me a little bit about your spiritual background. You say that you're an animist, and I don't know what that is. A lot of people don't know. We're so, okay. Again, I'll show my awful ignorance, my awful bias. I've got the Abrahamic religions. Boom. I understand that. I understand Hinduism to a point. I understand Buddhism to a point. I mean, the big religions. I understand, but I am more and more fascinated by the more indigenous spiritualities, and so turn me on, help me out here.
So I think there's more animists than there are of any other religion. But they're so
But
different,
there's no First Animist Church down the street,
No, there's
right?
not.
So
There's
yeah,
not.
we don't see it show up that way. So
Yeah, and I
so
don't think you ever will.
I think you're I think you're right. So let's go. Tell me about
Yeah.
it.
So animism is just the belief that everything is conscious, connected, and sacred. So it's like the trees have um, conscious energy within them, and they're a part of us, and we're a part of them. So the stars, everything around us, each other. And so when you believe in that way, then it forces you to think in a certain way and behave in a certain way. Because how am I going to do harm to a dog that's walking by, for example, if I believe that that's part of me? Or how am I going to litter on the trail that I'm walking on if I believe that I'm impacting the thing that's helping me to survive? You know, so it's just an awareness of this and a reverence for everything.